Your limbic system consists of several parts of your brain, and all of those pieces of your brain come together to help you to adapt in the world that you're in. These parts of your brain are responsible for neural transmissions, hormone production, and the production of other chemicals that your body needs to be healthy and well balanced. And there are different varying levels of limbic distress or limbic dysfunction. And so for some it may be very minimal, but for others it can be very extreme, so extreme that it creates physical illness. And it's not, no, they're not imagining illness. It actually creates physical illness in the body. It can trigger systemic problems, and it can actually cause damage to parts of your body. It can manifest as physical illness in people, in physical pain or extreme sensory issues, sensitivity to light, sound, touch even in some cases. It basically controls your central nervous system. So if your limbic system isn't in balance, then you may very well experience a lot of different issues. It can range from anxiety to, like I said, physical manifestations of systemic issues even, because you fall into loops with limbic dysfunction, and it's almost like one thing perpetrates the next. A limbic disorder can manifest from any number of things. It can be from extreme stressors, really loud sounds and really bright lights, or toxins like alcohol, drugs, or even pharmaceuticals. And they use pharmaceuticals to treat limbic dysfunction, pharmaceuticals like benzos, which I think can make it worse. In addition to toxins, like I said, there are stresses that can create this kind of dysfunction and trauma that can create this kind of dysfunction. So, for example, someone that's been in a really serious car accident may have real issues with driving, and it may put their brain in a state of fear, and they may come out of it feeling all bad and weird and all tweaked out and anxious. And that is something that can be cured. It's a limbic system dysfunction, and it manifested as a result of a trauma, of a major stressor. And it's not that your brain isn't doing the right thing. Your brain is doing the right thing. Your brain is telling you there's a threat. There's a threat. It recognized that there was a threat in whatever trauma you might have experienced. And it might look at things like things are a threat when they're not necessarily a threat. And that's when you know there's a dysfunction in the balance of your limbic system. The alternative to that would be not experiencing that fight or flight, which is also an imbalance of the limbic system. So if somebody doesn't experience any of those chemicals, that can also have a negative effect on someone psychologically and physically. I've been doing a lot of research into amino acids, and the proteins that we ingest in our diet actually create these amino acid chains that facilitate healthy brain function. And when things are out of balance, sometimes we might need to supplement with something to help to bring it back in balance. And I've done some research on this, and I haven't actually implemented the use of amino acids in this particular way. However, I have used amino acids in some other ways for physical health, but I haven't really targeted the use of amino acids in brain health or mental health. But I think there's a major key here. And it really comes down to, the proteins and the way that they're processed into amino acids. And I think that there are some things in our world or in our environment that have affected the uptake of these amino acids, or the production of certain chemicals, or the lack of protein in our diets, the lack of the right kind of protein in our diets. So as I was saying, I found this one supplement that I feel has a lot of potential, and that's alpha lipoic acid. And this is something they found in studies that has increased the energy within the cell. And studies have also shown that alpha lipoic acid passes through the blood-brain barrier and allows it to pass into the brain and into the nervous system, and it can actually act in a protective way for the central nervous system and the brain. It has also been shown to reduce anxiety. So I think this might have a lot of promise. I haven't done a lot of research on it just yet, but I think it was worth mentioning. And then, of course, your 9 essential amino acids you should be taking regularly. At least, I don't do anything every day. I don't take any vitamin or supplement, and I certainly don't take any pills every day. I'm also a very small person, so I'm about 100 pounds, and I'm about 5'3". And so I feel like I only need half of what any normal adult needs. But beyond that, I also feel like when you put something in your system just constantly, your system just becomes used to it, and it might start to not recognize it in the same way and not be as effective as it is when you're introducing it into the system. So when it comes to the use of some of my amino acids and my vitamins even, I kind of switch them around. Like one day I'll take this and the next day I'll take that. And I might go, 3 or 4 days before taking another one of those supplements again, or the same supplement, repeating that same supplement again. That's just how I do it. You have to do what feels right for you. And when it comes to the use of supplements, I suggest that you introduce them one at a time and you start at a lesser dose than you would like to take. So, for example, if you're planning on taking 600 milligrams of alpha lipoic acid, then I suggest you start out for a couple of weeks with like 300 milligrams and see how it goes. And if you feel good with that, you can add in another vitamin, amino acid, or whatever supplement you want to start to introduce into your regimen. The other thing that is really important for limbic balance is relaxation and meditation. But the thing about it is, if you don't find ways to balance your brain when you're not in relaxation and meditation, it's really ineffective. But it is a very effective way of helping to keep your brain in balance if you're actively working to balance your limbic system. So going outside, getting sunlight, spending a little bit of time in the fresh air. If you can't go outside, spending time in a relaxed state, spending time in an environment that you feel is good for you is going to be very helpful. And I suggest, 20 to 30 minutes of just quiet time alone to relax and let your thoughts flow away from you so that you don't have to carry that energy with you from whatever that point is. And it might be in the morning when you clear out that energy and clear out your mind, or it might be in the evening, or it could be both for some of us. But, taking that 20, 30 minutes just to clear out that energetic field, to clear out your mind and allow yourself to come into a peaceful place is really vital to bringing that balance to your limbic system. And then, of course, sleep. The older we get, the harder it gets to get sleep. And it is just such a huge problem for the good majority of us. And that sleep really has a heavy impact on our limbic system, because without sleep, we have an exhausted limbic system. There hasn't been time for it to even recover. So sleep is one of the most important things that you can do. Getting lots of good oxygen is going to be vital to any kind of healing that you're trying to do. So breath work is important. Just making sure that you're not breathing shallow as you're moving through your day. I find myself, when I get stressed out, breathing very shallow. And so you need to make sure that you're taking in good air, you're taking full breaths, and you're bringing lots of good oxygen into your system, because oxygen is going to help facilitate a balanced limbic system as well. And then a lot of people, because of the diets that we have in America and also around the world, there are lots of sugars in our diets. And a lot of people have type 2 diabetes or on the borderline of having it. And there are some that have type 1 diabetes. But blood sugar is something that you need to keep your finger on as far as, your overall health because of our diets, because of the way that we eat and because of the way we can't avoid some of these toxins that come into our system. And sugar is a toxin. It really, really is. But yeah, make sure you know what your blood sugar is. If you go in for your regular visits, make sure that they're doing an A1C and checking to make sure that your blood sugar is where it should be. And then, of course, identifying your stress triggers when it comes to this limbic system. Whatever it is that triggers you, you've got to be able to identify it. And you can't always ignore it. You can't always avoid your problems. You can't always eliminate whatever that trigger is. And the work that I'm doing isn't really about avoiding that. It's about correcting it so that it's not a problem in the future. And it makes me think about the reaction that I used to have to bubble wrap. Oh my gosh, you guys. So when I was about 5, I was sick and vomiting, okay? And my parents had a whole bunch of bubble wrap. I don't know why, but they put it on the floor all around my bed. And then they put the trash can on top of the bubble wrap. And from that point on, I guess I must have looked at it too much when I was nauseated or something. From that point on, for a good majority of my life, if I looked at bubble wrap, it would literally make me sick. It would literally make me nauseous. I had such an adverse reaction to bubble wrap. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't look at it. I couldn't have people popping it. It made me nauseous. It was the weirdest thing. And, I finally, ended up addressing that when I had my publishing company and I had to use the bubble wrap, and it did make me nauseous for a little while, but I had to work my way through it and say, that's not reasonable, and work with the bubble wrap, and I had to deal with it, I just had to. And it was through that experience that I recognized this limbic response, and that's exactly what it was. It was like the mind had a memory, and it had made a connection to something here, and it wasn't right. It wasn't correct, but it still made that connection and told me for years and years that bubble wrap was a danger, So our limbic system can be really, really tricky. And so identifying those triggers is really important. And then when we find out what those triggers are, there are techniques, and I will, show you those techniques in future videos, but there are techniques that you can use to retrain your brain to not see something as a threat. And that can be something as simple as just, like people that have social anxiety. Yes, that can be cured and you can get past it. And it's through the training of the brain to not fall out of balance in that way when exposed to certain triggers. And they have some different techniques out there when it comes to reprogramming the limbic system. And I'm really, really liking the neural feedback technology that they've been using lately. What they do is they connect you to some electrodes they place on your head, and they track your brain activity while you watch a video. And so through the electrodes, you're able to control the volume or the size of the screen and certain things about the video that you're watching. And what they want you to do is to try and keep your brain within a certain range. And if it starts to fall above or below, if it starts to go above or fall below that, the image on the screen will start to disappear. And so it literally trains you to physically use your mind in order to bring that image back by bringing your brain back into the range that it's supposed to be in. So I'm really fascinated with this technology, and I wish I could afford to buy myself a professional neurofeedback machine, but that may be something that lies in the future. But the neurofeedback seems very, very promising. Some of the simple things that you can do to just work with that limbic system in your everyday life is to utilize your senses, and I call it changing the channel. So when you feel that you're going into a state of mind, or you feel like you're moving into something that's a trigger for you, use one of your five senses in order to change the channel, in order to bring your mind from that state into something else. It's a redirection of focus, and it's really good at helping to avoid creating that negative response in your brain and to create a positive one instead. And so through your senses, you can use sound, you can listen to music, you can add a positive bell or chime to your phone, so where you just push the button and you can hear that chime or hear a sound that brings you pleasure in some way. And you may want to experiment with different sounds and things and find the ones that bring you that chemical response. And I think you know what I mean. It's that when you hear certain things, they bring a certain feeling. So if you can find a few things that bring that feeling and add them to your phone and have them on hand, so you can do that, or it may be a song or something like that. If you can do that, sound is going to be a very effective way to change the channel. And then, of course, just changing your perspective with your vision, if you can change your environment and walk into another room or walk outside, that's going to be very effective. Or just changing your perspective. So if you're in a social situation and you're feeling anxiety and you're locked into some kind of feeling here, and maybe you're looking at someone or whatever, you need to change your perspective. Look somewhere else, look around the room. Look for a number of things, like say, I'm going to identify 3 things that are red. So take your vision off of that and your focus, place it somewhere else for just a moment so that you can bring that anxiety back down to a manageable level and then come back to whatever it is that you're doing. And then smell. Smell is a neat one because I've been able to use it in inconspicuous ways. You can use your perfume or your cologne as a smell trigger by placing some cologne or something on your wrist or on your hands. You can bring back that smell whenever you want. Also, you can carry a mist with you or some sort of a perfume or something that you could spray in the air that helps you to bring your brain into a different frequency, because every one of these things, every one of your senses is a frequency. And so that smell is enough of a distraction to bring your brain into another frequency. And then, of course, eating. We all know that eating is one of those wonderful limbic things, but if you have a problem with eating, I'm not suggesting eating as a solution, and I'm certainly not suggesting it as a something that needs to be done on a self-gratification level. But putting a taste in your mouth, tasting something different, can actually change the channel for you, change the frequency. So a candy or a mint or having something to eat. Having something to eat, especially when you haven't had something to eat in a while, can be very beneficial as well, because, our limbic system can get really out of whack from hunger, So making sure that you're nourished, but also the taste factor, understanding that introducing a different flavor into your mouth is going to bring your brain into a different frequency. And then touch. Touch is a big one because there are so many effective things, from tapping and mudras to pressure points. So there are lots of techniques out there used with the use of touch to be able to bring yourself into a different frequency. So I'm planning on doing more videos on these topics in the future, and just kind of expanding on this limbic system and amino acids and techniques for helping to bring it in balance. And I really feel like anyone could benefit from understanding their limbic system and doing things to keep it in balance. Show support for the channel by hitting the red subscribe button at the bottom of the screen. Click the notification bell if you'd like to receive alerts when I release new videos. I appreciate you all. Thank you for watching. Take care.